Helene Kröller-Müller is one of the most interesting and provocative collectors and museum founders of the 20th century.
And we've really used this incredible loan of 36 works from the Kröller Museum in Otterlo as a lens through which to tell a story of Neo-Impressionism, the great movement that revolutionizes art and really set the foundations to the development of modernism in the 20th century.
One artist whom we really have to think about in this context is, rather surprisingly, Vincent van Gogh. He is not a neo-impressionist. He knew all of these people, particularly in Paris. He was fascinated by what they were trying to do. And in a work like this, Sower, based on a painting by Jean-François Millet, he attempts to do pointillism himself. This suggests something of the international spirit that was pulling together avant-garde artists at this time.
He only engages with pointillism for a very brief period of time, but I think in a work like the Sower, we just see the main reason why the artists themselves rejected the term pointillism, because it sort of reduces neo-impressionism to the fact that it's merely about painting in dots. And so this work is not pointillist, but it's very much inspired by neo-impressionism in the way that he chooses to paint in these sort of complementary colors, in blue and orange colors in the fields that really contrast one another.
Among other things, Helene Kröller-Müller, who had formed this collection, was also the world's greatest collector of works by Vincent van Gogh. And among the very first, she assembles the largest private collection in the world. She always had first choice. So it is very interesting, one, to see the kinds of work she wanted to have by Van Gogh and the way she juxtaposed them with works by the other side of her collection, the Neo-Impressionists.
And actually, we meet here another important woman in this story of the development of the avant-garde in the late 19th century, but also in the collecting of Vincent van Gogh, because this is Boch, who was the only person to have bought a painting by Vincent van Gogh at an exhibition in Brussels during his lifetime. So she really sort of commits to his art from a very, very early point and pays a real price for it. The guiding thread of this exhibition is the collecting of Helene Kröller-Müller and the artists that she chose to collect. And we make one exception to this rule, which is actually to include two paintings by Boch, which is sort of to say that, despite being this great visionary collector in her time, Helene Kröller-Müller was not entirely immune to the prejudices of her time and would not have collected a woman artist. And it felt quite important, recognizing the ability that a place like the National Gallery has in helping to shape the canon of Western painting.
This portrait is by Théo van Rysselberghe, and he, probably more than anyone else, was fascinated by the possibilities of portrait making using this pointillist technique.
And maybe because it is the portrait of a fellow artist, he allows himself to go, I'd say, a little wilder in his use of colors. This blue smock, but that actually is composed of blue, purple, pink and green dots. The background, which is all in sort of these acid, sort of absinthe greens and blues and yellows. I mean, it's unbelievably rich. And then, probably the most wonderful detail of all, the depiction of this palette that she holds in her hand. Van Rysselberghe is able to sort of straddle that seemingly impossible proposition of making portraiture work in the Neo-Impressionist style. This is a picture by Boch depicting one of these sort of quiet, still, empty landscapes. A house in darkness, a single window lit. And, for the people who criticize Neo-Impressionism for sort of being too cold, for being really all about the dots and the color theory, a work like this does something more. You can find a whole sway of sort of hidden meaning behind it.
I think you looking at this, you would know it was a Belgian artist, because while it is a pointillist painting, it also relates so much to Belgian symbolist paintings, these images without human beings in them of absolute stillness, a kind of mystery in a house in the city streets, and which so many of the Belgian symbolists were exploring in their works at this very same moment. Again, evidence of a small avant-garde world taking on various shapes and forms and themes.
Anna Boch is taking the sort of lessons in complementary colors and some form of dottedness, but then very much making the style her own. But when we talk about this weird, empty eeriness, few encapsulate that better, I think, that Jan Toorop's Shell Gatherer on the Beach of 1891.
And this is among the most austere, minimalist pictures in the entire exhibition. You have to work to figure out what it is you're seeing. There's this sort of wheelbarrow there. He's collecting things on the beach. But really, it's a simple series of horizontal bands building up to create this landscape. It's remarkably forward-looking.
If the shell gatherer and the wheelbarrow were not there, you would be really on the edge of abstraction. It wouldn't take much to just simply become these bands of pure color. And it's quite movingly, it's a work that Toorop paints when he hears of the death of Seurat in 1891. And really sort of says at this point in a letter to his wife, Annie Hall, I'm convinced that Neo-Impressionism, or divisionism as he calls it, is the best way to paint a landscape, the fundamental way in which you can capture atmosphere and landscape. But really the central picture in the exhibition, the most important Neo-Impressionist work that Helene Kröller-Müller collected, is Georges Seurat's Chahut, a work that amazingly has not traveled away from Otterlo, where the Kröller-Müller Museum sits today, since 1958, when it was shown at a big Seurat exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
And it is one of Seurat's larger canvases. Size of canvas was for him very much a marker of ambition. Chahut refers to the dance that we're seeing, something we know much better as the can-can.
And it's really this quite outrageous, underwear revealing dance that it had actually been banned in Paris for a few years. Some of his sources of inspiration, the sort of posters that were being put up on the streets of Paris in the metro, advertising for these great spectacles in the Parisian café-concerts.
If anyone ever asks you, did Georges Seurat have a sense of humor, I point to my favorite motif, which are these curving forms behind that dancer. We slowly realize that they're the tail of the gentleman's coat, evening wear, as he dances, but we also read it as devil's horns, suggesting that this is a kind of underworld he is depicting here with great wit.
The main figure that is closest to you, you see entirely from the back. And it's this back sort of painted in shadow, and actually, wonderfully, the shadow is just these purplish blues and reds who create this overall sort of purple effect, which has inspired the purple walls of the exhibition.
And this is a marker already by 1889, the end of Seurat's life, how advanced art is drifting away from what we would have called naturalism into a kind of intense stylization, taking it into a different world.